Right now, somewhere in Amboseli, an elephant is standing still. She has been standing in the same place for 11 hours. She isn't injured, she isn't lost, she isn't waiting for water. She is standing over bones. The bones are old, sun-bleached, scattered by years of rain and scavengers. But she found them anyway, and what she does next has no survival benefit. It burns calories she needs, it exposes her to predators, it makes no evolutionary sense whatsoever. She reaches down with her trunk, slowly, the way you'd pick up something fragile, and she touches the bones. Not to eat them, not to investigate them. She touches them the way you might touch a photograph of someone you loved. We have filmed this behavior. We have cataloged it. We have given it a clinical name, necrophilic investigation, which is perhaps the most spectacular failure of scientific language ever committed to paper, because that word contains no room for what you just watched. We like to believe that what separates us from every other creature on this planet is our awareness of death, our ability to look forward in time, see the end of ourselves, and feel the weight of that knowledge. We call this existential dread. We write philosophy about it. We build religions around it. But what if that's not a gift? What if an animal's relationship with death, unmediated by narrative, untranslated by language, unfiltered by the terror of anticipation, is something we don't have a word for? Not because it's primitive, because it's different. For most of human history, we have explained animal behavior around death with a single comfortable word: instinct. The bee that detects a dead nestmate and removes it from the hive, instinct. The crow that holds what looks like a funeral gathering over a fallen member of its species, instinct. The elephant that returns year after year to the same bleached remains, instinct. This word is a filing cabinet. We put behavior in it that we don't want to examine too closely, because examining it too closely creates a problem we are not prepared to solve. The problem is this: the closer you look at how animals process death, the harder it becomes to locate the boundary where instinct ends and something else begins. In the 1960s, behavioral scientists operated under a framework called behaviorism, which held essentially that inner states were irrelevant, that all we could measure and all that mattered was observable output. An animal moved toward food or away from danger, full stop. The idea that something might be happening inside, that there was something it felt like to be that animal, was considered unscientific, embarrassingly human. We now know this was wrong. Demonstrably, measurably wrong. What the behaviorists missed was neurochemistry. And neurochemistry does not lie. When an elephant stands over bones, her cortisol levels are elevated. Her temporal lobe, the region associated in mammals with memory retrieval, shows measurable activity. She is not running a subroutine. Something is being accessed. Something is being felt. The question is not whether animals experience death. The evidence is overwhelming that they do. The question is, what is that experience made of? Let's start with the bee. When a honeybee dies inside a hive, its body begins releasing a chemical compound called oleic acid. This is a fatty acid, the same compound found in decomposing tissue across dozens of species. Within hours, undertaker bees, a specialized caste within the hive, detect this chemical signal and carry the body out of the colony, sometimes flying up to 100 meters before releasing it. Here is where it becomes interesting. If you take a living bee and coat it in oleic acid, artificially triggering that chemical signal, the undertaker bees will carry it out anyway. It will struggle, it will walk back, they will carry it out again. To the hive, that bee is dead. Not because it has stopped moving, because it smells dead. Death for the bee is not a philosophical category. It is a chemical fact, a molecular announcement. The bee does not mourn, it does not hold a vigil. But it responds with precision, with purpose, with a fidelity to the chemical reality of loss that has kept colonies alive for 100 million years. Now move up the neurological ladder. Crows have been documented gathering around the bodies of dead members of their species in large groups. Behavior researchers call crow funerals, though they resist that word publicly and use it privately. What's significant is not just the gathering, it's what comes after. Following these gatherings, living crows in the group show behavioral changes. Increased vigilance, altered foraging patterns, elevated stress hormones. They appear to be learning something, updating their threat models, using the death of one to recalibrate the behavior of many. This is not grief in the human sense, but it is information processing around mortality, and it involves memory, social cognition, and neurochemical response. Go further still, to the orca. In 2018, a female orca named Telequa carried the body of her dead calf for 17 days and over 1,000 miles through the Pacific Ocean. She held it at the surface to keep it from sinking for over 2 weeks. Other females in her pod occasionally relieved her. She barely ate. The marine biologists who tracked her did not call it grief. They noted elevated cortisol. They noted behavioral deviation from normal pod activity. They used the language of measurement because that is all science currently permits. But consider the neurological reality of what was happening inside her. Orcas possess a limbic system more elaborately folded than our own. They have spindle neurons, von Economo neurons, the same cells associated with self-awareness, empathy, and social pain in humans. They form lifelong attachment bonds. They communicate in dialects that are culturally transmitted, not genetically encoded. Tahlequah was not running instinct. Something was unresolved in her, something her brain could not release. She had no word for what had happened. She had no ritual designed by culture to help her process it. She had no concept of an afterlife to soften the fact. She had only the body, and the water, and the refusal to let go. And here is where we must sit with something uncomfortable. Elephants return to bones with no survival benefit. Crows learn from death with extraordinary cognitive efficiency. Orcas carry grief across 1,000 miles of ocean. None of them are afraid of dying in advance. None of them lie awake at 3 a.m. running probability calculations on their own extinction. None of them have built an entire psychological architecture, religion, philosophy, art, denial, specifically designed to manage the terror of a future event. We do, every single day. So who exactly has the more sophisticated relationship with death? Thomas Nagel, in his 1974 essay, asked a question that philosophy has never fully recovered from. What is it like to be a bat? His point was not about bats specifically. His point was that subjective experience, qualia, the felt texture of existing, cannot be fully captured from the outside. You can map every neuron in a bat's echolocation system. You can simulate the sonar, you can model the waveforms, and you will still not know what it feels like to be inside that darkness, navigating by sound, building a world from echo. We face the same limit with death. We cannot get inside Tahlequah's grief. We cannot know what the elephant finds in those bones, what memory or sensation or wordless knowing moves through her when she touches them. We cannot translate the bee's chemical certainty into something that feels emotionally familiar. But here is the mistake. We have spent centuries treating that limit as evidence of their poverty. We assume that because they have no language for death, they have no relationship with it. We assume that because they perform no burial rite, they feel no weight. We assume that because they cannot anticipate death the way we do, with dread, with narrative, with philosophical frameworks, they must experience it less. But consider the possibility that anticipatory dread, the thing we are most proud of, the thing we built civilization partly to manage, is not sophistication. It is a wound. An animal that processes death without the terror of foresight, without the psychological scaffolding of denial, without the crushing weight of a future it cannot stop. That animal may be experiencing something cleaner than we are, not less, not primitive, different. We are the only species on Earth that knows it will die and spends its entire life trying not to think about it. Every ritual, every religion, every great work of art contains, somewhere in its foundation, this terror. The elephant standing in the dark over someone else's bones is not afraid of her own. That is either the saddest thing you've ever heard, or the most peaceful.